Okay, so what's been happening the last few days? It's time for me to show you what's been going on around here. There it is, the spaghetti bowl. Okay, that's the spaghetti bowl here that enters Midway Yard. This happens to be the yard ladder that I hand laid. Those are all hand laid switches. Bench laid, so I did not use a jig. This is a number 5. It exits this Iridium Park line right here. Okay, enters Midway Yard. From here, let's zoom out again. Okay, number 5 enters here. From here, all the way down to here, all these switches are laid down freehand from scrap brass rail. Yep, all of that I made from scrap, and I had some old brass flex track, which I stripped off all the rails and I put down. So these are all continuous rails through here, except where they're gapped. Everything else is continuous. So it's a collection of like 4.5 to 5 and a curved switch down here. I don't remember what this is. It's like a 60-inch and a 50-inch radius on this last one. And what I did was I used PC board ties. I thought I have them right here to show you. I used PC board ties from Oak Hill Track Supply, and I really like those. If I could remember where they are, maybe they are. This is my track cart. It's a cart. All my track laying electrical stuff is right there. So whenever I want to do something, I can move it. Aha, here they are. Here's one. Okay. That is an Oak Hill Track Supply PC board tie. It's super long. So I could make some of these really long ties in there. I really like these. And they're not very expensive either. If you look up on Oak Hill, I think it's called Oak Hill Track Supply in Wisconsin. You just call them and say that's what you want. They'll tell you how much they are. And just one of those sticks goes a really long way. But a lot of these long ties on here are a continuous tie, a PC board tie that goes across, and a solder to it. Then I made my own wood ties. Use a laser, cut out my own wood ties out of 1/16 plywood. So here's the new spaghetti bowl. Now, the reason I did this is because, as I've said many times before, when I clean track, does that look like brass to you? It is. And it's like this is really high copper content brass. And when it mates up to, I believe this is Lifelike flex track, the nickel silver flex track right here, the rails are not identical profile. So you got to do a lot of testing and a little bit of grinding. So on your motor tool, I use these for track. I don't use the fiberglass one on track. It's way too aggressive, and it's thick. So I use these, and I do a little bit of fine tuning. Sometimes I have to use a little grinding wheel, and sometimes I use this steel brush. They told you not to use on anything, but on track, that's what you do. Then, as you know, I do not glue my track down at all. Not only that, I don't solder it either. Now, this yard is a continuous piece of, it's all soldered. and it's all continuous. There's nothing, none of these switches are put together. They're not joined. This switch here is separated with plastic rail joiners, so it's isolated. And at each end of the tracks, you know, they're all isolated. That way I can turn them on and off. So when I switch the DCC, basically I got all these control panels everywhere. I just turn all the power to on, and then it's DCC. And then master control, flip it back to DC. It's that easy. So, the other thing I do with all my switches, see here, this rail right here, there's a gap, there's a rail, plastic joiner. Now normally, and especially on Pico switches, you get Pico switches that train show, this rail is dead on those. And it's hard to wire. So when I'm building these, there's wires in here. There's absolutely zero dead rail. If there's power anywhere, it's all powered. And that works great. Let me show you. So here's the standards gauge. Everybody should have one of these. They're cheap. You get them on the National Model Railway Association website. You can get them on there. And they got all these little things on here. And they've got one for track. So you got to go through. And it'll tell you if everything is, if you got the right distance, everything's set. Especially at points and things. You want those to be perfect. So I use a couple things to do that. One, I use this. I don't remember which one this is. It's just a good freight truck with metal wheel sets. And I should have made a video of this before I coated it with Oxgard, because just a little bit of rolling like that, it would roll way down. Oops! It would roll way down the track. I won't do that now that the Oxgard is on there until it turns to film. But I could send this thing like 10 feet away with just a little bit. It would really go. So one of the things you're looking for when you're doing these is you're looking for clicks. If you hear a click, I can probably force one here somewhere. Okay, there's a click right there. I've already fixed it. But these spots where they click, it should be smooth if you run your finger across it. You don't want it should not feel sharp. Be nice and smooth. Then, the ultimate test is this. This is a metal side frame truck from an SDP40, old school. These are the hardest things to keep on the track. If you can keep an SDP40 on the track without derailing anywhere, you've got really good track work. So I put this guy on. Oh yeah, I don't use ground throws or anything. Everything I do here is hand switch like that. I went to an operating session once where they did that and I loved it. Makes things really easy. Okay, so this truck here is by far the most difficult test you can put your track through. They are notorious. And we've done some videos on these where we try to fix them so that they end up getting a little lever effect. Anywhere that you can, a wheel will climb up and you get a lever and it'll skid off like that. You don't want that. So I've gone through all the track and to get it so that this truck stays on. Okay, now then I nail it, and went to the hardware store and I got these little nails here. They got a head on them, and then I use a nail set and a tack hammer, and I don't pound them down hard. They're just in there to keep everything in place. And one big reason not to glue your track down is, so I hand laid this, and it's going to take me months of testing to find out, you know, there may be a problem in here that I don't know about, that I haven't been able to discover. And one day something will run across the track that will need to be fixed. And you do not want to have to pull up glued in track or soldered track. Now, because my layout is subjected to some very extreme differences in humidity, there are some pretty decent sized gaps in the joints here. You've got to go through some periods, very long periods of extreme cold and extremely low humidity. Then there can be times where it gets hot. I mean, I'm talking like 80 degrees and the humidity is really high. I have a dehumidifier and I use it. But if I don't have to, I don't want to. And I make my layout so that it needs to stand up to that stuff. So a bunch of people who've seen my Benchwork before, they're like, oh, that's, you don't do it that way. That's not how you do it. I have all these Benchwork books and stuff. And I build stuff out of wood. And I treat the layout as I would as if I was building furniture. So I have a couple of requirements here. Number one, I have a concrete floor. I have painted this concrete floor with a clear acrylic that I can apply as often as I want. As soon as I did that, there was almost no more dust down here. Now, check it out. I use 4x4. There are a couple of 2x4s against the wall in the back. But I use 4x4 legs everywhere. Everywhere is 4x4 legs. Then they are spanned by either a 1x4 or this one happens to be two 1x2s. Everything is screwed in, mostly with star drive screws. This entire layout can be disassembled by one person with a screw gun and basically carried out of here on a dolly, and I'm betting all of this would fit in a minivan. The whole everything. Might be stacked up a little bit, but it will fit. Now my top is particle board. It is not shelf particle board, which is super hard. Don't use shelf particle board. These are called handy panels. They're like $4 or something at the lumberyard. They're cheap. They're still cheap. They usually are cut into 2-foot by 4-foot sections. Just for this yard, though, this is a little bit wider, so I actually cut these out of a 4x8 sheet. So they're just a little bit wider, but not much. Then, as you can see, another rule I have is I want everything under the layout to be on wheels. See that right there? There's some cassette decks, matchbox cars, girder and panel, but they're on a dolly. They can wheel out, and I can mop. Mopping is very important. Mopping gets rid of dust. And maybe an old army thing, but I love the smell of a mopped floor that had been mopped with bleach or pine oil. Love that. And everything's clean. And then everything rolls around. The cart here, I got a couple of these. Keeps all the stuff that I use for track and wiring in one place. And it fits under the layout everywhere. So when not in use, I just sit it under the layout. Same with all the locomotives. They're all on some carts that I put wheels on. And now the rolling stock is also on some carts. So I can wheel this out anytime I want. I can get under there. And as you can see here, I made a little stool to sit on. Also, that little dolly over there, which was like $7 at Harbor Freight, I've got a bunch of those. You can sit on that and wheel around. But let me tell you, if you are going to be doing stuff where you're sitting on the floor, make yourself a stool. I'll tell you right now, most of you know that going under the layout is not fun. And you want a good backache, that'll give it to you. So make yourself a little stool. And it totally works. I got that idea out of this guy. He's a Navy guy who talks about doing meditation and stuff and ways to learn things. And he said, first thing you do is make yourself a little stool. And it works. And I use that in layout now. Now, what do you think? Should we test it? We should, shouldn't we? So, what I got two locomotives that should be by far the most difficult locomotives to ever keep on the track. The two F45s. Okay. These are the old school ones with the metal side frames. We did a video on rebuilding these. Now, remember I said I used particle board? This is particle board. And the top of it, this is bulletin board cork. It comes in 1 foot squares. The whole layout is covered in it. If you've ever gotten one of those layout planning books, there's a method that almost all of them have called designing by squares. Well, guess what? My entire layout is covered with squares. Makes it super easy to map and super easy to figure things out because I've already got squares on here. One of the things I do not like is the sound of plywood. Now, these two locomotives are super loud. But if they were rolling on plywood or foam over plywood, that is my least favorite because it's so dang loud. Pretty much every locomotive I have on cork over particle board, they're mostly silent. These guys are going to get that new 280 motor because you can't get the motor that's in them right now anymore, and I need that for stuff with narrower hoods. They've got a super powerful FF180. That means it's got precious metal brushes, so they can go super slow. Let's check them, see if are we aligned properly. Let's go ahead. Check our alignment. Yep, switch is good. Good. We're ready to roll. Okay, we're going to go through it. The spaghetti bowl. If these guys can stay on the track, it means it's got excellent track work. Okay, let's bring them back through. That is the loudest sounding locomotives that I have. If that was foam over plywood, it would be, volume would be ridiculous. The other thing is, you know what, my Benchwork costs way less than doing it out of plywood. The advantage of particle board is, once it is trained to its spot, basically, if you have it screwed in right, and you've got strength for your supports, which we do, 4x4s have strength. 4x4s are not that expensive. And altogether, this material costs way, way less. And one thing I don't like is cutting plywood on the table saw. Even though I've got a big thing for cutting on the table saw, I just don't like cutting it, and I don't like working with it. Particle board is awesome. These little nails here, easy to put in, easy to take out. And they hold as long as you want them to hold. Now, let's check. That was track 1. Track 1 is a go. Let's go track 2. You can get it tighter and a kind of a wavy little ending there. Okay, good that way. Can you make it back? If you could run those guys at speed because of those old trucks, that means your track work is really good. Okay, now I want to show you why do I put all these little wavy features in here. My track is not straight at all. And that is literally on purpose. And the reason is I once was photographing piece of track out in the country, and I had zoomed in with my camera, and it looked incredibly wavy. I saw a train come over it, and it was really cool how the movements of the cars. So I've done that everywhere. If there are little waves in them, I keep them because they add interest. Track 2 is qualified. Alright, let's go into this section. Track 3 and track 4. Let's start with track 3. Can you believe that? Let's take a close look here. People give me crap about all these ridiculous guardrails not being prototype. Hey, I'm not a prototype modeler. These guardrails here make sure that something like an old Blue Box SD40 or F45 or FP45 does not screw things up and derail. They work. We're about making things work here, not about making them pretty. I did paint everything. I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, well, now, let's do this. We are going to hook up. This may not work because these are my hammerhead bulkhead flats. I don't know how long they are. They're more, I think between the bulkheads it's 60 feet. So then you add on another, whatever that is on the end there. But they're long cars. Couplers are body mounted. The wheels are inset. And I designed this and then I resin cast a whole bunch of them. So I got like 100 of these. And I did this wood deck here. I have a Cricut craft cutter and I put some like basswood in it. And I had the Cricut scribe the deck. It worked out great. But these are my test cars, and I know that they're way too long for some stuff. Some of this track they're way too long for that, and they're not gonna work with it. But now this train is loaded up with all the Alco FAs, and it is heavy. These cars are highly likely to derail. Some of them are wobbly because of what's on them. Like this first one here, it's got very high weight, very high up, and it wobbles. I don't know if it's going to make it or not, but we're going to see. Let's see if we can pull it out and pull it down the track. In fact, let's do this. Let's go back here, and then let's zoom. Let's see if we can get kind of a little special effect going here. This is one of the things I like to do when I photograph prototype stuff. Okay. We're zoomed in. Let's see if we're going to make it. I don't know if we can make it. Check out the power of these guys is ridiculous. 14% voltage. That's why I use 24 volt motors. Let's give them a little more speed. See if we can make it without falling over. It's going to be a close one. Come on, yes. Uh-oh. Who's caught up? Oh, man, it's that first one that gave me so much trouble last time. Oh, darn it. He's wrecking my presentation. He's already been over the workbench a few times. I'm going to put him on the end of the train. We'll put him back here. See if they'll behave on the backside. It doesn't help that the load on him is not good. Okay, hooked up again. Let's see if we can do this from way back here. Get right on the side here. Let's do a zoom. All right. See if we can pull out of the yard. 16% voltage. So at 14 volts, 16% of 14 volts is roughly what? About under 3. Damn it. Who's doing that now? These cars are old and I have not checked them much lately. Thought we could pull out of here. We'll give her a little more power pull out of here. See if we can do that without derailing. I don't know though. Might not make it. Or we might make it. Yes. Now, I don't know that I want to back them into here. But let's do this. Let's bring them in on track 1. Now, as you know, the workbench is connected to the layout. So I put my projects on flat cars and gondolas. And then when I'm not working on, or stuff like this, where this part of the project is finished, I like to move them out of the way while I'm working on the other parts. What? Somebody's hung up again. Come on. Whoa, somebody's really hung up. Who's hung up here? Let's see if we can find out. What are we hung up on? Oh, oh man. So these cars are heavy enough that they will toss the locomotive off the track right now. Let's get you guys, make sure you're, oh, not that way. Damn it. Damn it. And because of their length and the way I built the trucks on these, they have enough leverage that they can just toss a locomotive when they don't like something. Which is not that way. You guys can't. Are you guys on the track? How'd you get on the track? What did you guys do? Well, I guess them extra guardrails worked out on that one because I put them back on the track. Okay. Let's see our train coming. Without going on the floor, are we gonna make it? Or are we gonna drop something down off the edge of space? A very dangerous operation. Okay. Let us... Oh, crap. He was tossing them. He's tossing them right out of there. Yeah, when these guys are loaded, they are not really meant to be in this yard. They're meant to be back there, so that yard is full back there. But they were meant for testing things like this. So we get you on the track. I want you guys to get on the track. I'm going to do this. Get on it. Okay. Now, all right, I reached the 30-minute rule on here, and I did not. I pulled all them cars out of here. I thought I was filming it, but I wasn't. So they're all out of here now. We're going to leave them out of here. I wanted to show you something else. Okay. When I built this, I painted it Rust-Oleum dark brown camouflage. And then when I install it, just to make it look for now, I have not detailed this track in any way yet because I'm going to we're going to test it for a while. I went ahead and then I painted it, the ties and stuff, just so they'd match. It didn't need a lot of paint, but it needed a little bit. And what I did was I make a wet palette. I showed you before. Here's a wet palette. It's 4 paper towels and a piece of baking parchment. Then I take some burnt umber and some pavement, which are water. Oh yeah, I pour into a little bit of distilled water till it's soaked, but not like super wet. And I put a glob on there and I just mix it with the paintbrush. And then I paint stuff that needs to be painted just so that it fits in. That's how I paint it. Super easy. Then, when this track is really proven itself, one of these days we'll go back and we'll start detailing the track, make it stand a little bit more real. Okay, so I thought I had one more thing. I'm pretty sure I got one more thing for you. Well, I forgot what the last thing was, other than let's do one more run here with somebody. Who should we run through here? Well, we got Ferdinand and Mouse right there. Ah, we're following the main. Okay, we're following the main, and I pulled all those cars out of here, and they went out of here just fine from track 1. So now they're down there. I'll have to bring them to the yard closer to the workbench, store them. But otherwise, that's how I do it. And what I spent on all this was not very much. I used old brass flex track. You find a train show in bundles. Made my own ties. The PC board ties, they're less than $1 each, and they go a long ways. But we finally got the spaghetti bowl ladder. It's pretty sweet now. Let's zoom in on it from way back. Let's zoom in down the track, and let's see if we can see how wavy it is, which I like, and I'm not changing it. I like wavy track. I mean, not ridiculously wavy, but I like track that's got character. That's kind of cool. It's not. Geez, it looks a lot straighter than it really is. Maybe it is really straight. I don't know. It does work though. We tested it. We tried it. So it must be good to go. For now, anyways. Anyways, now we got to get back to finishing off those FA units. But we got another major track laying project coming up pretty soon. When you cross that bridge over there, there needs to be some switches that are going to switch off onto a giant island I have out there. That is where one of the first industries I constructed for this is called the Apollo Brewery. It's 2 giant Helgen breweries, 2 Walthers powerhouses, and I don't even know what else. But I'm going to make it as big as I can possibly make it. It gets its own yard, and the track's got to get put in there. All right, well, that is it for now. So at least you guys know what's happening. We'll get back to working on the underframe of doom probably tomorrow. Okay, there was one other thing. So now with the old ladder, which was a bunch of number 4 switches all connected together, I had to put in tons of feeders all over the place. Now, down here, you can see I have my little control panel. Let's get this guy out of the way. Okay, so there's a switch back here for the Osmax industry, which is way back there. I can turn off the track where the local locomotives generally park. Up here, I have a switch. This turns the yard ladder on and off. This one here turns yard limits on and off. When it's set to main, you can only go in the yard without crossing a block. You only go up to this switch. When it's set to yard limits, that's when the locomotives can run across the bridge and way down there. Gives them a long, that is, in normal operation, that track will be used as a yard lead. So when a train has to come through on this track here, the dispatcher will have to clear the yard limits. He'll restrict the yard limits to the yard ladder. So that's what that does. In DC, it lets me run trains way down there and have a nice long yard limit for testing purposes. Now, since I wired this thing, since I set this up as all continuous rail and everything is powered, just if you put 2 leads here, the whole ladder is powered. But I do have some redundant feeders in this, but not as many as I had before. There were a ton of feeders that I was able to remove, and so I only needed, I think it goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 feeders. Does the whole thing, and that's redundant. It doesn't even need that many, but I put them all in. Super easy, and on these it is super easy for me because this is not a bunch of plywood and foam and stuff. I can drill, here's an old hole right there. I can just drill through the cork and the particle board, and I can just feel underneath and bring it up because it's not that thick, and then I can solder on. Super easy. That's why I love doing this. Now, the downside to using cork over particle board is if you have an elevation change, you need to add a layer. So it's not that hard to do. It can be another particle board. With cork, again, there's lots different that you could use foam if you really wanted to. I don't like foam because of the noise problem. But those are all things that you can do. And otherwise, my benchwork is super solid. You can stand on it. And it's nice and quiet. So that is basically, that was the thing that I forgot to tell you. To add this on to the end of the video. And that should do it for today.